the epic story of Albert Einstein, the silent child who rewrote the universe. He wasn't like other children. While babies around him babbled and spoke their first words, he remained silent. 1 year passed, then 2, then almost 3. Still, he said nothing. Doctors were puzzled. Relatives whispered behind his parents' backs. Something is wrong with this child. Teachers later claimed he was slow, odd, perhaps even mentally weak. Yet this quiet boy from Germany would one day bend time, stretch space, and shake the foundations of science itself. He would change how humanity understands light, motion, gravity, and the universe. He never wore a crown. He never commanded an army. He never held political power. Still, his ideas traveled farther than any empire. This is not just the story of a scientist. This is the painful, triumphant journey of a misunderstood child, a rebellious student, a refugee escaping hatred, and the mind that dared to imagine beyond the stars. This is the story of Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in Ulm, Germany. His father, Hermann, was an engineer. His mother, Pauline, a talented pianist. Together, they lived a simple, middle-class life. But from the very beginning, Albert was different. He didn't speak his first words at 1 year old. Not at 2. Even at nearly 3, he was completely silent. His mother watched him with a constant, quiet worry. His father stayed awake many nights, wondering if their beloved child would ever speak. But silence did not mean emptiness. Instead, Albert watched the world with wide, thoughtful eyes. He stared at beams of light cutting through a dusty room, at the shadows stretching across the floor, at birds in flight, at the patterns of rain on a window pane, and the gentle movement of leaves in the wind. His mind was a sponge, quietly absorbing everything around him. Then one day, his father showed him a small, ordinary pocket compass. Albert held it in his hand, fascinated. The needle twitched and quivered, always pointing north yet. Nothing was touching it. In that moment, something awakened deep inside him. What invisible force was pulling the needle? What hidden laws governed the world he saw? He didn't have the words yet, but a question began to take root in his young mind, a question that would shape his entire life. What lies behind what we can see? The revolution had begun, not in a laboratory, but inside a silent child. Albert grew up in Munich, where school was strict, cold, and ruled by iron discipline. Teachers demanded absolute obedience. Students were expected to memorize facts without ever questioning them. But Albert's brain just didn't work that way. He couldn't accept anything without understanding it first. One teacher shouted at him in frustration, "Einstein, your mere presence destroys the respect of the entire class." Another said the words that would echo through history, "You will never amount to anything." But those insults didn't crush him. They only pushed him further into the private world of deep thought. While other students memorized answers for the test, Albert was searching for meaning. While they accepted what they were told, Albert kept asking, why? He wasn't rebellious, just for the sake of it. He simply refused to shut off his curiosity. At 15, exhausted and disillusioned by the rigid German school system, he dropped out. He moved to Italy, where his family had recently relocated their business. But this wasn't the end of his education. He decided to try again, this time in the freer academic environment of Switzerland. Albert applied to the prestigious Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. He failed the entrance exam. But here's the amazing part. He failed only in subjects like botany and French. In math and physics, he scored higher than most of the older students. The university saw his potential. He spent a year catching up, tried again, and was accepted. Even in college, he didn't fit into the system. He often skipped lectures he found boring, preferring to study the original works of great physicists on his own. He challenged professors and debated ideas relentlessly. He thought in ways no one else could comprehend. When he finally graduated in 1900, he was full of hope. He dreamed of becoming a professor, of dedicating his life to unlocking the secrets of the cosmos. But no university wanted him. His professors saw him as too unconventional, too independent, too unpredictable. He had a brilliant mind, but the academic world wasn't ready for it. For 2 long, frustrating years, Einstein searched for work. Rejection after rejection. Doors were shut in his face. He was brilliant, but broke. Finally, in 1902, through a friend's help, he got a humble job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. It was a quiet, stable position, but it was far from the world of theoretical physics. He spent his days reviewing other people's inventions, but every night, and during every lunch break, he disappeared into his notebooks. There was no fancy lab, no research grants. Just one man, a pen, some paper, and an unstoppable imagination. And in that quiet patent office, something extraordinary was about to happen. In the year 1905, at the age of only 26, this unknown patent clerk published 4 papers that would forever change the course of science. Historians call it his annus mirabilis. Miracle, yeah. First, he tackled light. In his paper on the photoelectric effect, Einstein boldly claimed that light isn't just a wave. It's also made of tiny, discrete packets of energy he called quanta, which we now call photons. This single idea is the foundation of modern technology like lasers, solar panels, and digital cameras. It was for this discovery that he would later earn the Nobel Prize in Physics. Second, he proved that atoms are real. In his paper on Brownian motion, he explained the random zigzagging dance of particles suspended in a liquid. He showed mathematically that this dance was caused by invisible atoms bumping into them. At a time when many scientists still doubted the existence of atoms, Einstein provided the definitive proof. Third, he rewrote our understanding of time and space. With his theory of special relativity, Einstein declared that time and space are not absolute. The faster you move through space, the slower time passes for you, relative to someone standing still. He showed that space and time are woven together into a single fabric. And finally, he gave the world the most famous equation ever written. E equals mc. Energy and mass, he said, are not separate things. They are 2 sides of the same coin, different forms of the same fundamental reality. This single, elegant equation revealed that a tiny amount of mass could be converted into a tremendous amount of energy. It would lead to both incredible progress and terrible consequences. The world could no longer ignore him. The quiet clerk in Bern was suddenly a star. The scientific community looked up and finally took notice. Universities that had rejected him now begged him to join their faculty. Einstein became a professor, then a world-famous scientist, and then a global icon. Crowds gathered just to get a glimpse of him. Newspapers printed his mind-bending theories. The world had found a new hero, a hero of the mind. But just as he reached the peak of his fame, history was about to turn dark. As violent nationalism and anti-Semitic hatred spread across Germany, Einstein, being a prominent Jewish scientist, became a target. In 1933, when Adolf Hitler came to power, Einstein's home, his safety, and his country were all at risk. Nazi groups publicly burned his books. They put a price on his head, calling his science Jewish physics. Einstein left Germany and never returned. He became a refugee, homeless, countryless, heartbroken. But he carried with him the one nation no one could ever take away, the nation of his mind. He found a new home in the United States, at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. From there, he continued his research and spoke passionately for peace, justice, and human rights. Even in his later years, Einstein remained as curious as a child. He was often seen wandering the halls at Princeton in worn-out sweaters and sandals without socks. He played his violin for relaxation. He personally answered letters from children who wrote to him with their questions about the universe. He questioned everything from the birth of the stars to the meaning of life. He spent the last decades of his life searching for one final, grand idea, a unified field theory, a single equation that would unite all the forces of nature. He never found it, but he never stopped trying. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76. But his ideas did not die with him. Every time you use a GPS device, its calculations must account for his theories of relativity. Every nuclear power plant, every laser beam, Every theory in modern physics so carry his fingerprints. He once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." His life was the ultimate proof of that statement. He began as a silent child whom teachers thought was slow. He became a refugee with no home. He became the thinker who rewrote reality itself. Albert Einstein did not simply study the universe, he taught all of humanity how to wonder again. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the minds that shaped our world. See you next time.